Have you ever wondered where the problems in the world today would exist if we had deeper connection to ourselves, others, and the environment and acted from that place? Welcome to the Conscious Action Podcast with your hosts, Brian Berneman, who believe that connection is the key to taking conscious action as individuals and creating a better world. We are here to raise awareness and inspire meaningful action by sharing stories, knowledge, and conversations with thought leaders and change makers. From sustainability to well-being and everything related to conscious living, our mission is to empower you to be the change that you want to see in the world. Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. I am Brian Berneman, your host, and I have the pleasure to be joined all the way in Minnesota in the US by Masati. Thank you, Masati, for taking the time, for connecting once more with me. I would love it if, for everyone that is watching and listening to us, if you can share a little bit about your journey so far in this life.
Wow. I think I've lived quite a few lifetimes in one lifetime, in one life. So I've traversed a lot of, say, universes or planes through near-death experiences, which I get, all of my knowledge from. So basically, back in the day, in my teens, early 20s, Brian, I had this deep desire of really understanding what life is about, because, I read all the philosophical books, not all of them, but a lot of them back in the day. I read a lot of the religion, spirituality, I read a lot of the motivation or success books, but, in each segment, and again, as a young kid, I just wanted to, just like anybody, have a fantastic life. I didn't want to fall into the traps of society, fall into the same traps of parents, fall in the same traps of shit. When I get 30, I'm going to age like this and this and that. I didn't want that, because I knew there was like a bigger reason for why we're here. And every day it's like, I just kept, asking. It's like, gosh, I really want to know that one answer of life. Just like Einstein is like, what is that one equation of life that success doesn't really say add up to it? Because a lot of people that I work with today, they're multimillionaires and so on, and they're not really happy. They're dying in disease just like anybody else, and then the spiritual path, they're not really happy either. So again, what was that one question? And I guess I was dying to find out that one question. And well, I guess I wanted to know so bad that the universe goes, hey, do you really want to know? I was like, yeah, I just really, really want to know. And bam, I had my first near-death experience about 22 years old, warehouse job. I was going to college at the time, supporting myself. And I had my jaws crushed in a rail car accident. So that was the first near-death. And I'm not going to go into all the details. You can go to my website, thexicode.com, to find out the whole story. So that allowed me, I guess, a disillusion, a disillusion of who we are, because a lot of us, we have an idea, especially as a kid, we have an idea, Brian, of who we are, right? But it's outside of us. When I grow older and I become successful, then I'll reach that plane. When I get married, or when I have kids, or when I have a career, whatever, again, it's outside of our plane. But the first near death, again, it's a disillusion where it's like, wait a second, I am that pure potential that goes far beyond anything here in this physical form, beyond money, beyond, although it's necessary. But again, so I'll get to that. So that allowed me, again, to dissolve the identities that we're bound by in a space and time universe. It allows us to come back. People might call it their spirit. I don't like to use that word. I've coined timeless self, because that is your timeless self, not bound by anything, your limitless self, you want to call it that. So I experienced what it was to be limitless, really. And Brian, it's crazy beautiful. The amount of love you experience, the amount of, say, potential that you have, that every fiber of your being. And here's the key. I was completely conscious as I separated from my physical body. So in all my near deaths, I completely separated from the physical form. So I wasn't burdened in any way by time and space. So that was the first near death. Again, more of a, say, an apprentice experience on what our potential is about. So, I could go on to the second near death, and I don't know.
Yeah, go on.
So the first one, again, allowed me to understand the potential that we are. And I always say that, our physical bounds here only allows us to access 2%. And where, if people ask us is like, well, what's our purpose of life? And our purpose of life is literally understand the 98% that we don't even think that we have. We don't have, we kind of know it as a child, but then that fades away. So no matter what your, say, desire is, no matter what you're doing, saving the whales, saving the planet, saving yourself, whatever it is, becoming super wealthy, becoming spiritual. Again, your main purpose or the key design for you is literally that you want to know, you want to understand that limitless self, the other 98% of who you really are, not just the 2% that is an illusion, so to speak. Which led me to the second near death about 20 years later. I was in my 40s. That was a drowning accident in Belize. And that was more of a resurrection, literally. It allowed me to go, so the 20 years, I started getting my abilities. I started sensing people. I started to have future vision, that goes way beyond, say, normal intuition, normal insights, normal things that we hear about. So that second near death, again, it was a drowning. We were in Belize. We were on a rafting trip, and it was just really, really crazy that nature basically knew what was going on, because as we got into the water, and it was pretty rapid, it was pretty fast water, and the birds stopped chirping. We were in the jungle, we're in the middle of the jungle. It was dead silent, just like in the movie sets where something's going to happen. It's just like dead silence, and I'm going, that's peculiar. But I didn't know I was the main actor. So it's like, damn. But I just had this feeling. So I like checked, double checked, triple checked, my kids' life vest. But for me, they didn't have a life vest. So, and I said, well, I'm a really strong swimmer. I'll be fine. So, everything was just set up for me to have that second near death. It's like the universe was grooming me to have that second near death so I can get to what I would say a journeyman level. First you're an apprentice, the second one is the journeyman level. And this was, again, a resurrection of the potential that in most people die, by the time they hit early 20s, literally. So and this allowed me, so we went into the water and I got sucked into, what's called a cenotes, basically a hole in the water, in the river. Got sucked under, and, despite, trying to crawl out of this, say, hole that I got sucked into, which I couldn't because the water pressure was so strong, I just let go. And then again, I started to see my body float down into, the depths of earth, and my consciousness, my real self, just went through the water, went through the rocks, through the water, and then again into a timeless space. And that's where I saw, say, the possibilities. It taught me how to, say, understand what I teach now. It taught me, say, the logistics or the science, the natural science that's there, basically the science of how the universe works. It allowed me access, and in that plane, there's, you see the tunnel of light. The first, I guess, aspect of it is, your loved ones greet you. The second aspect, is that there's a life review, which I did in the first near-death experience. And then there's about 13 layers. So I went through all the 13 layers, past the tunnel of light, and this is where you don't come back, right? But somehow I managed to sneak behind and see what actually orchestrates time and space here. And that's where I got downloaded with pretty much all the information that is and shall ever be. Because at that level, you have access to everything. Like Einstein says, if it wasn't for time, everything would happen all at once. He's absolutely true. So I had access to everything, and this is where my abilities of like scanning people, reading your, say, timeline, reading your algorithms on how you say create yourself. And this is where people get amazing and fantastic changes. So again, the second near death was a resurrection of my true innate self of who we are. Right? And this is nowadays, this is what I do, over the past 13 years, hundreds of thousands of client sessions, and we've grown through word of mouth, literally, and the transformations that people have had through their health, the craziest diseases. Nowadays, I'm working on quantum computers, creating coherence in quantum computer systems, AI systems. So again, amazing technologies that's, say, maybe futuristic, but if there's a lot of movies like Everything All at Once. That movie is
Mm-hmm.
basically what I do. Doctor Strange, basically, I'm the real Doctor Strange in real life, or the Marvel movie, Spider-Man, where they get into altered states and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah, but that's what I do now. Really, just help transform people using frequencies,
Mm.
not just
Beautiful.
normal. No.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated by people's stories, because, I mean, we are in a sense so different and so alike. And as you say, one of the things for me with my journey was that I was so interested in this human potential,
Mhm.
and trying to, as you were saying, reading the books, and at one point I realized I need to go and experience this and tap into those places that, that you're mentioning, of
Yes.
our potential in that timeless, limitless space,
Mhm.
where
Yeah.
where we are already there all of the time, and mostly we don't realize it. And it's something that a lot of times I'm curious about how this is for you, but most times with my clients through the years, I
Mhm.
can see them in that potential,
Yeah.
and as I do that, that supports them to be able to see themselves in that way.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, so I do see people's potential, and that's what I do. Like you, but quite a bit different. Is like, for example, and again, if you don't mind me scanning you the way you run, is basically you get into an altered state, you see somebody's potential, from what I'm seeing, right? Which is really fantastic, and that's what you want to do. So that what you do literally goes beyond, say, the concepts or the limitations of the mind, right? You access the portion of your identity that was, say, there before you even had a brain,
Mm.
right? Because what was the blueprint that created your identity, that told your cells to structure you as you, right? There was that intelligence. That's that natural intelligence that I talk about. So that realm, that access. So there's about 10. So here's your brain. People like Tony Robbins, Joe Dispenza, and all those fantastic individuals, solutions, healthcare, success. They work from the brain forward. These are your physical interactions. Okay. You're stepping into, say, one or two steps behind the cognitive, behind the brain. Okay. Which is really amazing. A lot more people are waking up to that. But there's about 10 steps behind. So this is where you need to change the core level of who you are. I call it an inception frequency, the identity of who you are here, that has always been the identity that is based on the creation of you, based on four elements. That is your genetic patterning, what you inherited from your parents, grandparents, and so on. There's millions of people, 18 generations up, by the way, that had to be around to create you. Think of it, millions of people. You're running their code, because humans don't clean up very well. They just take on the previous generation. Nature doesn't do that. It eliminates the stuff that didn't work and moves on, makes it better. You've got genetic patterns. You've got generational patterns like Generation X, baby boomers, all that. You've got societal patterns, that consist of you. And then also you've got people will call like previous lifetimes, what your experience was here before you came into this physical form. So those four elements create you. So all these elements are creating you. before you even get to your brain level, right? So you're accessing that, which is really cool. It's like, okay, there's more. A lot of people, some people will call you empathic, right? Basically, empath is somebody that gets pulled into somebody's realm, or they pull the other person, say, consciousness into their realm, right? The important thing is that you can identify where you are and then see them or see their patterns outside of yourself, which is really, really important. Otherwise, you start to, again, start to morph into that person that, you got sucked into, or they sucked into you.
Mm.
I can go into really deep detail, but we won't. it'll turn into a science forum. But anyway, yeah.
No, that's good. And I'd love to get your take, Masari, on, you know, for the last few years, I've been seeing a lot of what I call an acceleration. People waking up or people realizing something different. What can you share about your perspective or what you're experiencing in terms of how time and consciousness seem to be shifting or it's accelerating at the moment?
Yeah, it is. It's true. So, time and space is just like any other invention. Brian, is literally creating more efficiencies, just like just like any invention. Like back in the day, the cell phone, for example, your smartphone. I don't know if you remember back in the day, but it came in a suitcase and it wasn't very well, and you could only handle a phone call. But over time, it's gotten an amazing device. It's like a mini computer, much stronger than the first computers that landed a spacecraft on the moon, right? So that's power. So time and space literally goes through, say, versions of updating itself. Okay. So think of it as a software update for consciousness. And it's not just humans, by the way, although humans think that, where the leaders think that, yeah, we're making these changes, we're making the law. It's really not. It's a universal structure. Time and space is becoming more efficient, maybe every 10,000 years, every 50,000 years. I think this grand change is about every 200 and some thousand years. We're going into this transformation. Humans have to, in this case, will be part of that transformation, whether we like it or not. So and what's happening is consciousness is becoming lighter. It's becoming more, again, efficient. So what that means is people can't hold on to their bullshit anymore. Simply, we just can't hold on to the heaviness because we're not supposed to. We were meant to be, say, solid. So in this case, the new consciousness that's rolling in is literally allowing us to remember where we should actually be if we didn't have free will. Because free will, I would say, it's kind of a bitch. No offense, but because we don't know what to choose, really. We basically go, well, I'll have what my parents had, and then we roll it into the next generation. But if you look at nature, it's always perfect. It's always, say, up to date. So what's happening is what you were talking about. Consciousness is coming to a higher version of itself. Humans have to follow through and come to that same level. So it's a really great opportunity for expansion. Unfortunately, though, like I said, it's a software upgrade. There's a lot of people, because of free will. So there's a lot of people with free will. It's like, no, I'm not going to upgrade my system. I'm going to keep it as it is. And you'll see a lot of, again, people, disappearing, let's just say, but the people who do upgrade their, say, consciousness or their software, it's going to be a fantastic world. It's going to be a fantastic world. It's a beautiful world. So some of the things that have happened, I predicted years ago, the downfall of the virus, financial systems breaking down, the church, the religion system, spirituality, that breaking down. Okay? To me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months from now, you'll start to see like massive identity breakdowns because, people identify themselves, Brian, as, oh, I'm a billionaire. Oh, I'm a school teacher. Oh, it's like you won't have that opportunity to identify yourself as one of those. You have to find out who you are internally. And
Mm.
it's going to scare people. But again, it's a great opportunity for us to awaken. So it's a
Yeah.
beautiful time.
Mm. And I'm curious, you know, as you work with so many people, for those that are in a sense just new to
Yeah.
this, that they are literally just waking up, oh, like I don't know who I am, or there's another way, or I have all of these layers on top of me. Where do you start with them? What's your suggestion to them? It's like, start with this.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of free courses. You know, again, if you go to thexicode.com, there's a lot of free seminars. You can go to the YouTube channel. You can look up Masati, Masati, on basically its life. It explains life and how it is, why things are happening the way they do. But if you do, if you want to start like right now, I'll give you. It's called spatial referencing. The first thing you have to understand is how you render yourself, where you are in comparison to, say, dimensions of time and space. Right. So what that means, just like Google Maps, say you're in point A, you want to go to point B, wherever point B is. I want to become a successful doctor, a nurse, wife, spouse, whatever it is. I want to make $1 million. I want to become spiritual. That's point B. But a lot of people, if you put that in your computer, like Google, Google Maps, the thing would ask you is like, well, where are you starting out from? And most people don't know where they're starting out from.
Mm.
So again, what you want to do is start seeing yourself and how you're representing yourself here. So the best way to do that uh, is start to spatial reference, and this is just basic spatial referencing that you can do. If you do nothing else, this will just help you. In fact, there's a lot of people who get off their um, psychotic type medications, the antidepressants, just doing this simplified spatial referencing. And it's really, really easy. You might laugh at it, but again, it's powerful. So what you want to do is, like, if there's an object around you, like there's a picture over there to my right, it's like, oh, the picture is over there. The tip of my nose is here. So the object first, and then a point on your body, just a specific point. It could be your collarbone, it could be your sternum bone. It doesn't really matter, but it's the object and then a point on your body. If you listen to sounds, like, where's the sound coming from compared to where I am, right? And again, this is where it's the same technology as what your phone uses to locate you, in this in compared to Earth. Okay. But this helps you locate on what dimension or reality that you're seeing yourself in. And once you locate yourself, this is where you start to separate yourself, Brian, from, say, there's a lot of trauma in your childhood, and you think that the whole world revolves around trauma, or people not trusting you, or you not trusting people, or you getting into, say, situations where you make a lot of money and then you lose it, or you just can't hold on to anything. Those are all scenarios or dimensions of time and space, or an environment that people create themselves in, and they think it's real because of childhood experiences, and it's like, gosh, this is real, this is how the world works, and it's really not. So just that that piece that I said about spatial referencing, right, that'll help you and your listeners literally to go, oh, I'm actually running from an old pattern that my dad had. Because then you start to separate, your parents' patterns, society's patterns, and again, the four ingredients that I talked about. And then you start to go, that's not me. That disease that mom having, I don't have to have it when I'm 40 years old the way she did. So again, you start to separate, and then you start to realize where you are starting from. And once you know where you're starting from, just like Google Maps, it can't tell you to get to point B if you're not putting in the accurate location.
Mm.
Most people's identities is, well, I made $1 million last year, or I started a successful, business, or, I helped, 10,000 people, I fed them. That's not going to tell you where you are in dimensions of space and time. Okay. So it's not an outside thing that you do. It's you have to internalize how you see this reality. So again, it's the object first and a point on your body. Sounds kind of crazy, Ryan, but if you did that for like a day, I bet most of your listeners would go, damn, I'm running a lot of patterns that I shouldn't be.
Mm.
It's the easiest, fastest way. And that'll get you started. And then again, we've got deeper level courses for people.
Mm. Yeah, I often, one of the biggest things that I work with a lot of my clients is this that you're mentioning of those patterns that are unconsciously there that we are repeating. I do a lot of work with that ancestral or family trauma that and patterns that we keep on repeating, and it's fascinating how once we're able to bring that into our awareness,
Yeah.
how that starts to shift and how then we start to peel off some of the ideas or identities of who we are. Those, one of my teachers used to call this our self-images. And it's like, okay, how can I keep on removing this so that I can come back to that place of, not externalizing, or those things are not actually who I am. I am not
Yeah.
just those things, and those things don't need to hold on to me, and I don't need to hold on to them any longer.
Exactly. And, when you have somebody, and I teach what I do, by the way, it's not just me, I've gone through the experience of near deaths and understanding the logic or the science. I call it exponential intelligence, meta science, but I teach a ton of people. I teach a ton of healers. So basically, I'm like the coaches, the teachers, and so on, the leader, so on like that. But yeah, we teach them how to see that from a different perspective. And, when you can be the observer. Okay. And this would, again, help many people who, do what you do is as you become the observer and you stay solid in your space and your identity and you become there, you see where they are, point A, and you see the potential and you see it from outside of them, right? Their consciousness, you as, a coach, a healer, whatever you want to call yourself, you pull them into your point of view and they go, oh, I see it from an outside perspective. And this is where they can go, shit, I can release that family trauma because it's not theirs anymore. So right there is the key to healing, is separating themselves from their identity. And I love what you're doing, Brian, by the way. I just love it. Where most people, most psychology, most therapists and so on, or success coaches, it's like you're here, you've got all these blinders that distort who you are. And it's like, I need to take these things into my success. That's
Mm.
why success doesn't work when they become successful. That's why so many people, they reach, fame and fortune, and then they commit suicide, or they get ill, or they get alcoholic, or they get whatever. It's like, that's not the Lido. It's literally removing all those patterns first. And then when you do become successful, you own it. Because again, your frequency is the same as that frequency.
Mm.
So
Yeah. And,
really,
last time when we spoke, Masati, you mentioned something around the Inception waves and how, through hypermeditations, accessing those core frequencies. Would you be able to expand a little bit on that?
oh, absolutely. Yeah. So inception frequencies, very, very different than energy systems of the body. And again, it's validated. There's tons of studies. There's, energy systems that emanate when you see somebody, you get somebody's vibe. Those are frequencies. So there are different levels. Again, there's physical frequencies and then there's emotional frequencies. You can tell somebody's angry when you walk into somebody's house. You get a vibe off it. Those are, again, surface level or, again, time space. But then there's a frequency that renders you. And again, this is where quantum physics is like, hey, we're really not here. So what's creating that? Right. So it's a frequency. It's a ripple in time and space that distorts. And then you are literally the distortion or your reflection. So that's a simplified version of what quantum science is now discovering. So, and that's what we do. So inception frequencies, and you guys can close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and I can just guide you into this space if you don't mind. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Take a deep breath in. So just imagine that there's a calm ocean, okay? And it's the ocean of consciousness, okay? Well, all possibilities can happen, okay? And there's a constant, say, pebble that's dropping into that ocean. And the ripples that, that pebble causes is basically your life experience. And say that there's an interaction. So when your frequencies or your waves cross somebody else's wave, then that creates an experience for you that you feel. Okay. So and that's how it works. So imagine now, what happens is your frequencies or your waves that you're sending out, you start to awaken and you start to realize, gosh, you know what? I'm not liking the waves that I'm sending out. And this is where you go, gosh, I need to change the wave. And this is where psychology, so just imagine you're dropping the pebble and about 10, 15 waves away from that pebble, you go, oh, this is where your brain hits and you observe it. And then you go, oh, I don't like the wave. And then you try to change the wave, through say, losing weight, gaining weight, exercising, success, spirituality, whatever that we do, we try to change the wave. But the point is that wave was created way back here. So you're always focusing on change the wave. As you age, it gets so cumbersome because you just can't hold on or change that frequency. And that's where people default back to their original state. So in my case, inception frequency is what you're talking about. Brian, again, take a breath in, guys. And even if you're listening to this on a recording, you'll still feel the frequencies. Is like, wait a second. Why don't we look at the pebble that you're dropping? Why don't we look at the pebble that you're dropping into the ocean of consciousness? Because if you drop a star-shaped pebble into water, it'll flow out like a star. If you drop a square-shaped pebble, it'll float like a square. So it's like, well, let's change the inception frequency. Again, what you're dropping into the sea of consciousness that other people in you are picking up. So to get to that level, I've created what I call hypermeditations. And hypermeditations, again, they knock off decades worth of therapy and so on, where like in 10 days, you can literally reset your whole life structure. And people have, okay? Tens of thousands, by the way. And so what this basically goes is like, wait a second, I don't want to change way over here. I want to change the manufacturing of what's happening here. Does that make sense for you? This is where you start to go, wait a second. And that pebble is shaped by, again, generational patterns, genetic patterns, societal patterns, previous lifetimes. That's what that shape. So you're trying to, again, change something that's hard-coded, but it's really not hard-coded if you can have access to it. So hyper meditations allows me to help you go into deep states. Okay. So this goes, even if you're not a great meditator, I put you into states because I don't calm your mind. I put you into a dimension of space and time that you're so present that you can see your potential, just like I did in my first near death. So, which is really fast, by the way. So take you out, you get to see your pattern, and you go, wait a second, I can remove this pattern. I don't have to age like my parents did. I don't have to have the same relationships as they did or society. And then you start to peel away, and this is where you reshape your identity or your pebble that you're dropping into that sea. And it's amazing because when this changes, it hits your brain, and this is where you don't have to have willpower. You just are. You just are, Brian. And this is where it goes like, gosh, I just wake up every day feeling alive. I don't have to psych myself up. I don't have to have a morning routine, like Tony Robbins talks about. He takes a 3-hour morning routine because, again, he's cycling down to his original core, sending it out, and it hits his brain and goes, God, it takes me 3 hours to reset this whole wave that I'm sending out. That really becomes cumbersome. Why not just create that wave automatically so you don't have to spend your time being, say, in peak performance? You are in peak performance. And then when you hit your brain, it's like, gosh, what else can I do? And it's much faster than willpower. It's much faster than a lot of medications or medical, say, cures that people have, right?
Mm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
there's something that I find fascinating. I remember so when I did my studies in neuroscience that it was so helpful for so many people to be able to trust that what was happening when there's things like this that are basically we're able to, I call it usually like rewriting or going with the more of a code language. We can edit the software, we can go there as you're saying. We don't need
Yeah.
to work so much on the mechanic as step one, step two, step three. We can just go somewhere. And I use the word healing, but we can use the word rewriting, editing, whatever word, to be able to just change that frequency or that pattern to then allow us to be there instead of having to get there all of the time. And how what now neuroscience and different research that has been done with quantum physics as well, that is proving a lot of these things. It's allowing most people that through the years I have talked to trust or open themselves up to the possibility that this can actually happen. It's not just like all potential things that I need to trust. I need to trust in Masati, or I need to trust in Brian, or I need to trust in someone that is telling me this is true, but I cannot see it based on what I have learned. And there's an opening there.
Yeah, and literally that's what these hyper meditations do for you. Literally, it's like it drops you into that space where you remove the filters and you go, you don't have to trust anybody. You just literally experience that space, and it's like, oh, I see how this works. And then once you see that space, it's like, whoa, you can't unsee it because that's your natural state to be. So, and with neuroscience, it's really amazing, but and there's a lot of potential in neuroscience. In fact, I help a lot of neuroscientists, and then I also help a company that does neuroscience. I help them with a lot of their programs go to the next level because they still think that it's part of your brain that they need to edit and change. But but you have to ask, what was the intelligence that created you before your brain was even around? That's what you want to access, and that's what's missing in neuroscience. Otherwise, again, that intelligence is sending out this information. Neuroscience and NLP and those kind of, motivational psychology, so on, basically go, oh, here, let's rewrite that. So you're still going to point, say, B, and then it's like you don't want to go there. Let's rewrite it. So basically, it's a redirect. That's what most neuroscience does. It's like you have trauma in a certain situation, your brain goes to it. NLP or neuroscience basically goes, oh, you don't want to go there. The actual, say, experience for you is over here because we rewrote it. But you're still feeling that experience as you go to point, C. In our case, it's like, wait a second, let's revisit that trauma and rewrite it so it means something different to you. It's not like you can't change what happened to you, but you can definitely change the experience that you attach to what's happened to you.
Mm.
And that's encoded in your, say, genetic or your biology at a cellular level. So again, it goes beyond your brain.
Yeah, and I just looking at some of the people that I was working with this during these last few days, that I remember specifically with two of them that they noticed the shift. They didn't understand because like one of the things is I don't want them to go and relive stuff. Like I want them to shift that
Yeah.
and not longer carry it.
Yeah.
And and one was like, well, but I don't remember. I'm like, did you notice the shift? Yes,
Mhm.
that's it. Like, let
All you
that
need to.
go.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. A lot of people think, again, through therapies and, what science thinks, the conventional science is like, you have to go relive that. You have to talk about it. It's like, no, wait a second. You just shift it over here. And then when it hits your brain, it's like, oh, whoa, I see my, whatever happened to me, my trauma that happened to me at 12. Oh, I see the trauma, but I don't have that emotional connection anymore because it's different. Right. And that's where you want to rewrite it. It's different, not at the brain level, but at again, your core level or your inception frequency.
Mm.
So,
So
yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah, I love it, and I'm interested, Masati, in like how what do you see, or how would you say to someone like, this is what the human potential is. What is that?
Human potential?
Yes.
Um, well, human potential, again, if we're only experiencing or noticing that we only have 2% of our possibilities, and this is where everything gets recycled. Wars get recycled, pain gets recycled. We've redefined a lot of the words out there. What love means. For a lot of people, love is basically torture, sacrifice, pain. It's like I have to give myself. I can't. So again, humans have redefined all those, say, natural principles. So peak performance, or possibilities, as you'd call it, is like, wait, let's rewrite all those definitions. I'm actually writing a book called Lexicon of Power. Should be coming out soon. On, hey, let's redefine love. Let's redefine honor. Let's redefine success. Let's redefine what awakening is. Back to its original code. Natural, not my code, but natural intelligence, the way nature would use love, way nature would use sacrifice or hate, or all those emotions that we have. So we rewrite that first, and then that's where you start to get into real peak performance. Because a lot of times, Brian, what people do is like, athletes. I work with a lot of athletes. I work with, people from the Navy SEALs, if you're familiar, like they're top elite military people, and they have a lot of honor, but they carry a hell of a lot of burdens. And, they think you can't be in peak performance if you're carrying the burdens of your past and your, parents' past, right? That's not peak performance at a frequency level. That's just like dragging and trying to be strong, and then this is where they burn out, right? I don't care if you talk like David Goggins. Are you familiar with David Goggins?
Mm-hmm.
He's a great guy, but basically his formula, for example, for peak performance, right? Again, I'm not picking on him, but I'm just advising him, is basically what David thinks, and many people are like this, whether it's David, athletics or CEOs or even spiritual people. They've had so much pain back in the day, they've used it to project them into success. So in this formula, basically, it's like for every 2 units of pain, and this is what your audience can write down too. For every, you say, 2 units of whatever sacrifice, pain, suffering that I've gone through, I make 1 unit of success. So David, again, that's his underlying structure on say performance, peak performance. So basically what David is basically saying is like, gosh, you know what? If I want to create 3 units of success or performance for me, I have to suffer 6 units, 6 times. Well, there's a limitation to that. You can't keep pushing your body because you'll burn out. I mean, he's young now and everything, but there's another way. It's like, wait a second. I don't have to reference, because it's all about referencing, like I talked about. That's why spatial referencing, that simple exercise, this will help you go into deeper referencing. It's like, wait a second, I'm referencing my success to the pain I had back in the day. Silicon Valley, all those great individuals that did that, they're not any better off. They have a ton of money, but again, they're not any better off. They still have the pain and the burdens and the suffering. Right. Mm. So in this case, it's like, let's rewrite that equation to, hey, you know what? I learned from that space, but for every unit that I understand myself, my peak performance goes up. And then this is where you start going into, 3% of your potential, 4% of your potential, 40% of your possibilities that are remembered within you, not outside of you. So that's what performance to me is, again, peeling away the stuff that you're not. I mean, and then you'll be timeless, you'll be unstoppable.
Yeah
Without the burden of sacrifice, without the bullshit.
Like for me, a lot of it's about letting go and not longer holding on to those things, and just removing, like when I was deep into Tibetan Buddhist practices, my teachers say all of the time, all that we're doing is just removing layers that no longer are needed. And that's it.
Exactly.
Like that's all that we're doing to reach our potential and to get back to that original blueprint of consciousness that isn't covered with all of these things that, as you're saying, all of the generational, cultural, religious, familial patterns or traumas, that then we can strip all of that off, and it's like, what's there, and
Yep.
what's that frequency, what's that energy.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's what exponential intelligence is literally all about, is like peeling the layers. And again, there's different ways, Buddhism, again, fantastic. There's a lot of, say, modalities out there that kind of help you do that, but we just help you do whatever modality that you use. It's not a replacement. XI, or what I do, is not another modality. It basically creates efficiencies in whatever modality that you use.
Mm.
So, whatever that you're using, Brian, it just creates efficiency with you. If you're a psychologist, if you're a therapist, whatever, again, we don't change what you do. We change the version of you so you can do whatever that you do better. So, but yeah,
Beautiful.
absolutely. It's about peeling the layers away so your pure potential comes through. And by the way, it's not like you're going to a simpler time. You're being an advanced intelligence that you should have been if we were completely optimized. So,
Yeah, beautiful. And Masati, I know that you mentioned it a couple of times, but for the people that are interested and are more curious about all of this, where can they find more about it?
yeah. Well, one, they can go to my YouTube channel, masati.live. There's a lot of free information. So much on Life Explained. You can actually see me work on individuals and see how fast they transform. They're literally like before and after, like within minutes. You can change literally that fast. So it's not time-bound technologies. They can go to the xicode.com, the xicode code.com. And if you sign up for the newsletter, you get a free hyper meditation to start you off. So towards the bottom, there's like a starting package that you can go and again, for the value, it'll change your life significantly. Yeah.
Beautiful. I will have those links as well, so that anybody can access them quickly. And lastly, before we go, Masati, is there any last messages that you would like to share with everyone that is watching and listening to us?
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess my message is that, the universe is really allowing us to see our potential. It's really coming forward. I would highly recommend grabbing it, just holding on, letting go of your belief systems, ideations that just didn't work for you, your parents, society, and just going, well, it didn't work for them. Let me try something different. Let me go into my identity of who I really am. And you'll see you'll have a fantastic life. And it's right there, guys. The universe is literally handing you on a golden platter. Here, take it. It's made it so easy for you. And maybe that's why we're having this conversation, because you can literally change your life really quickly. So,
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Masatis. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing with us. And for everybody that has been watching and listening, I would love to know what resonated with you. What did you hear? Have you already explored some of these different ways that we've been sharing? I would love to know anywhere that you're finding these episodes. Just leave us a comment there. Keep the conversation going. Thank you. Thank you once more, Masati, for your time. Thank you, everyone, and I will see you all next time. Bye.
What did you like the most about this episode? Take a moment to think about what change you can make in your life today.
Share your conscious action on social media using #ConsciousAction and tagging @ConsciousActionNZ so we can celebrate your impact on the world and create a ripple effect.
One easy action we would love for you to take right now is to share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. This will help us get these messages out into the world and inspire more people to take conscious action in their own lives, contributing to the better world we hope for.